The lies continue, the repression of facts continues, and the manipulation of the law continues. In truth, the MOU simply stated that federal law applies to roadworks and that RIDOT can proceed to seek to fulfill the eligibility requirements, which include very specific NEPA impact studies. It in no way declares advance approval of roadworks. And if you dig deeper, the government would, if RIDOT fulfills the requirements, allow tolling of all vehicles, and that means cars, trucks, and tractor trailers. It is Rhode Island and not the feds that is choosing to discriminately toll only tractor trailers. And I suspect that the feds who continue to say Rhode Island can toll anything they want, in fact, are smart enough to steer clear of embroiling themselves and signing off on an illegal toll of one class of trucks. Unfortunately, as we all know, roadworks succeeds by failing, which simply means that both a legal victory by the ATA and the trucking industry, combined with revenue shortfalls because of bloated truck numbers and diversion, will bring no choice but eventually to toll cars. So while we work toward our legal battle that inevitably will happen, we need to first take care of business by locally making certain that the brave souls who voted against roadworks, many of whom are here today, are re-elected and that the regime that ushered in this plan is removed. We'd like to say that we need pelts on the fence of the General Assembly to send a message that we no longer will tolerate this sort of governance. Ultimately, if roadworks comes to fruition, the trucking industry will control the fate of this program, and the citizen consumers of Rhode Island will pay exponentially more for everything they eat, drink, wear, watch, and drive. We need to stop this, and the least path of least resistance is to have a repeal in our own legislative body. I close by thanking you all for being here, by thanking our General Assembly members, present and future, by thanking Travel Centers of America, specifically Manager A.J. Perillo, Regional Manager Scott Anderson, and my dear friend and their boss, Tom Lucas of Travel Centers, for allowing us to use this great facility and for their hospitality. So now we'll get to some of the other speakers. I now want to call up West Greenwich Town Administrator Kevin Greene to share some thoughts. I don't want to steal Kevin's thunder, but this facility with incredible investment of upwards of $7 to $8 million and paying taxes of close to $3 million property and employing 75, places like this are getting swept under the rugs in favor of paid-for jobs to high-tech down in Providence. Needless to say, diversion around Rhode Island, and that is inevitable. The OOIDA, the owner-operators folks did a survey and said it would be 75%. That essentially would snuff out this facility and negate any of its productivity when that diversion happens. So I want to welcome Kevin and have him come up and share some comments with you.
It's good to see a lot of people here today, and you got to stand up for these causes. And quite frankly, this truck stop right here has been here almost 50 years now, and there's been a lot of trucks in and out of here. And because there's been a lot of trucks in and out of here, that's generated a tremendous amount of money for the state of Rhode Island. All this fuel tax and things that they buy inside and everything else. And if they decide to go through Connecticut or other directions, this could very well dwindle it down to not too much. One of the things, and a lot of the rural towns, I don't know how many altogether, but most certainly West Greenwich voted as a council to pass a resolution against the tolls because of a lot of reasons, partly diversion, partly it's not fair, partly we think it will probably end up on cars before we get done. But the reason I asked to speak here today was one of the things, this is a perfect example. I heard them talking early on that they were going to put a trial toll or galley, whatever, right up here on 95 on Teft Hill over by where the way station is. Well, Route 3, which was 95 before they built 95, the main route runs parallel all the way up through. And the first thing that struck me was, you know, you can get right off exit 4 and you can come all the way up Route 3 and get back on 95 up here at exit 6. And, you know, I can't speak for Exeter and Richmond, but it goes through those three towns as well as our own. And the last thing, you know, we've made it pretty clear that our police department is not going to be out there stopping trucks to see if they're trying to avoid tolls. It's a waste of money, it's a waste of time. I think if you're going to have the state police do it, the resources could be used for much better things. On a personal level, I'm also a dairy farmer, and I have a lot of goods and services that come to me. I have grain that's delivered. I have all kinds of stuff that's delivered to me, and I'm talking to the vendors that bring it to me, and to try to, have to pay another toll, that's only going to go one place. That's going to add to the cost of what I have to buy, which is going to add to the cost of milk when you buy it. So all the way around, we got to keep this battle up. I served in the General Assembly for 12 years, and I know how things work up there, but as an outside observer, I think we got them on the run, and keep fighting. Thank you.
Now I'd like to welcome our guest of honor. It's my privilege to welcome Lisa Mullings, President and CEO of NATSO. This very, very powerful voice in the national organization represents travel centers and truck stops throughout the nation. Lisa just traveled up from her headquarters in Washington, and they're proudly co-hosting this event with us. Lisa's here to show NATSO support of our opposition and to share the national perspective on tolling and its effects. Her presence here today in support of our opposition shows yet again the widespread consequences of tolling, and certainly illustrates the national coalition bill that is occurring in opposition to truck-only tolling. So I want to welcome and give a round of applause to Lisa Mullings of NATSO.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm not only today talking on behalf of NATSO that represents truck stops and travel centers across the country. I'm also speaking for the Alliance for Toll-Free Interstates. It's a very broad-based coalition group of individuals, businesses, and associations that are committed to making sure that we don't expand tolling on existing interstates. Like many states, Rhode Island is tasked with finding more revenue for infrastructure, and it's very important to fund our roads and bridges. We need that. However, the politicians are deciding that tolling is a much more palatable way to fund those roads and bridges, despite the fact that the fuel tax that's in place costs a lot less to administer, fraction of what it costs to administer those tolls. Rhode Island is spending thousands of taxpayer dollars to build toll gantries that will never actually fix Rhode Island's roads. Despite perfunctory sign-off from the Federal Highway Administration, road work still faces constitutional and legal hurdles. These hurdles are going to take years to resolve, and that will put Rhode Island's infrastructure on the back burner. And finally, when the tolls are eventually built, they will have irrevocable damaging consequences for Rhode Island businesses and for families. We've seen what happens when tolls are increased on other interstates around the country. In Ohio, for example, years ago, tolls were increased, and what they saw was a huge spike in the number of fatal car and truck accidents on secondary roads. And this is what we can expect here in Rhode Island as well. When the Ohio governor determined that the reason that they had such a spike in fatal accidents was due to the increase in tolls, he went and reduced the tolls on the turnpike. And he also actually reduced the cost of the fuel on the turnpike so that truck drivers would want to use the turnpike again. And it did result in lower fatal accidents. So that's what we can expect in Rhode Island, is more of this type of thing, because trucks are going to be forced to use these secondary roads. Truck drivers are some of the most hardworking people in America, and they already pay an enormous amount of money to fund roads and bridges. And it's unfair of the state to try to tax them disproportionately to other users. It's going to also have a huge burden on this business and other businesses that depend on that interstate traffic. Rhode Island is not a large state, and there will be a lot of diversion that takes place. And the benefits to having those highway users that get off the road and buy goods and services here will be lost to Rhode Island. So the tax money that comes from that and the employment that comes from those businesses will be lost to Rhode Island. So there's lots of far-reaching effects here that we need to be mindful of. Travel Centers of America, as was stated earlier, They employ about 75 people here, and these people depend on the free-flowing movement of traffic through the interstate system. The jobs and the tax revenue goes to fund schools and fire protection, police protection. We need to continue that. Tolls are also going to result in higher costs for everybody who lives here. You know, these tolls are going to be absorbed somehow, and the businesses that need to have goods transported to them will then have to increase prices along the way to the consumer. So this is not something that will not affect the people of Rhode Island. We strongly, obviously, oppose this, and I urge you to please check our website, or the Alliance for Toll-Free Interstates, and join our cause to try to stop politicians from spreading these tolls like a disease across the interstate system. Thank you.